County Mayo, a beautiful place bounded to the north and west by the Atlantic Ocean. Here you'll meet the most open-hearted people of our time, but they have a serious problem. Their villages are dying. County Mayo's population now counts 130,000, but the number keeps falling. Why? Because of the lack of jobs for people with higher education, which means that the average unemployment rate is 40% and higher for the population living in the area of County Mayo. The people who actually have jobs needs to have more than one to support their families. One of these people is John Heneghan, the local area's business owner and funeral undertaker.
There isn't as many people in the area, so our undertaking business would be a lot quieter than years ago, but that's the way it is with depopulation. It shows in our schools, in the undertaking and in your business, how things have changed in the last 10 to 15 years. It's harder to make it in these years after the recession because from 2007 and 2008, all our youth have left the area, and we're not very hopeful that they will return. Like in the 80s and 90s, when people left here, they always came back. But the people that are going now are well educated and have lots of qualifications of different types, and they can get work anywhere in the world.
Civic Centre in Belmullet is the place for young people who want to have a higher education. And most of these people are dreaming of getting away, simply because they can't get jobs in small areas like Belmullet. Edel Golden is a teacher at the Civic Centre. She teaches in media and has experienced how the students have dreams of leaving the small villages.
Jobs and employment in rural areas like here in Orestad and Belmullet is a big issue. There's been huge immigration over the last few years since 2008 and the downturn in the economy. Whole villages around this area have been decimated with young lads going off to Australia and off to Canada to find jobs because they just don't exist anymore. A lot of them would be in the construction trade and so on. So here in Belmullet, a lot of people, if they are working, it's in small shops or pubs, or it's fishing and farming. Fishing and farming are huge out here.
There is very little job opportunities anyplace. With the downturn in the economy, there's only one industry around here that really kept the whole town going, which was the gas field. It employs about 600 people, but apart from that, there was nothing. So if you weren't in that industry, you had to move out to get employment. Most of the country shut down completely. So Dublin's picking up now, and so is some of the larger areas, but it's really kind of an immigration time at the moment where if you want a job and if you want it in a specialised area, you need to move out of the country.
Everyone that lives in this area would have 2 or 3 different things to do. There wouldn't be just one thing, because the one means of living isn't enough around here.
They have to have a few jobs. The farm just wouldn't keep, even with EU subsidies. The farm, because of the quality of our land and the smallness of the farms, they're not sustainable. They supplement the income of the people, but they need another job.
Well, mainly we've had rural depopulation here has been very, very bad for the whole area, where we would have maybe 50% of our population has left, and it's very hard to sustain communities when you have that type of immigration from it. Out of a class of 40 in our secondary school, I think we calculated that 35 out of the 40 people immigrated at the time from this country, and a lot of them came back later on and rebuilt houses here in maybe 10 and 15 years later. They mainly moved to England, which wasn't very far away. Nowadays our youth go to Canada, Australia, still England, America, and the hope of them returning because of their qualifications is not very good. We haven't the population in the local area to sustain the level of business we used to do maybe 10 and 15 years ago.
For years after independence we developed all the bogs. We had power stations of peat off the local bogs that give great employment, both harvesting the peat and then in the power station. But those became obsolete, became inefficient, and the bogs were cut away, and they closed a few years ago.
The days of the big factories or the big construction employers, that's all gone, and people have left this area to go and find work.
Mainly what happens is here, you stay till you're 20, 23, go off to college, come back then, and depending on your career, you stay or you leave if you can get work or not.
I think if the jobs were here in Belmullet that people would return, because it's such a beautiful place to live and the people are so friendly. And I think everybody, home is in your heart, and I think people from who I talk to in Australia and Canada and so on, I think they'd love to return home if the jobs were here.
We really need state intervention to say that the next American company or the next Irish industry announcing 100 jobs, we're not going to Dublin, we're announcing it for Belmullet.
In 2010, €20.8 million was spent on social welfare in Ireland, and there were 2.2 million people in receipt of a weekly social welfare payment at the end of 2013.
I think it's good. The welfare state is needed. I think it's needed in every EU country. There are people, through sometimes no fault of their own, who just cannot get a job, or who are in poor housing, or are below the poverty line in income. And those people should get help.
I teach a class of 16 students that were all previously on social welfare, and they're all really eager to get educated and get a job and do better and make more money and bring money into the area and spend it in the local shops and bakeries and so on. So I know it's probably a popular misconception that, oh, well, we'll just stay on welfare, sure, isn't everything getting paid and am I getting a medical card and so on. But I think from my experience, knowing people that have been on it, they're really eager to get off and do better for themselves.
Our hopes for our business is that it survives this current economic, as you call it, disaster, and that the country would get jobs for the people to keep them in our local communities. But it doesn't look very hopeful. But if it does happen, that some of them come back, it would we could sustain ourselves in this local community. But time will tell.
So I guess the future of small Irish rural western villages, it doesn't look great right now because a lot of the younger people are immigrating. A lot of the age groups, say, that are in their 20s that would be building new houses and so on, they've all moved away.
So I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I just think it would be a shame just to leave us as a rural national park, which we're becoming. Our beautiful beaches, lovely golf courses, and very few people actually living here would be a shame and a tragedy.